Hey Gene, Dan from All Systems Golf. Excited to get more in depth with you on this stuff, man. And for our first lesson, as a follow-up to, I guess, what our original lesson was, I think you've definitely made a few little changes that have helped. And that's what that does is it gets us progressing towards what we're ultimately going to be working towards, which is a more functional pivot. So if we look at your setup, I'd like to change just two things in your setup. So you can see how your shoulders are a little bit level and also your hips. So what I'd like you to do, and we'll draw this in green for you, is I'd like to see a little more tilt in your pelvis. So I'd like to feel like that left belt line is a little higher than the right. And then I'd also like to do that with the left shoulder. So I'd like the left shoulder a little higher um, than the right shoulder. And so that's just a minor setup adjustment that I would do. Because remember, when we talk about driver, we want a positive angle of attack. You know, that's hitting the ball more on the up. Especially at your current swing speed, that's going to be important for maximizing carry distance. And, you definitely have the potential to hit the ball much further than you do. And we're going to talk about why that is. But the setup thing is going to be first. And then the setup's going to help promote this. But I want you to be really aware of your backswing pivot. And I want you to see how you kind of lean a little bit towards this, towards the target here. I want you to feel a little bit more like you're getting weight into that right heel, okay? And what you can do is at home, just practice with a club across your chest, getting that turn, and then feeling like you could actually lift up your left heel off of the ground. And that would be an indicator that you're getting more pressure into the right heel. Okay, again, your setup's going to help tremendously with promoting that. So that should clean it up right away. And then the big work that we're going to have to do is on your downswing. Okay. And ultimately, this is what matters in any golf swing. But there's sort of a snowball effect. If you have weight on your left side, as you see on the right hand side here, you got a little bit of you can almost tell that there's more pressure in your left. So that makes it very difficult to pivot properly. So again, that's number one, is those setup keys and the turn. But then if we look at the downswing, what's going to happen, and you talk a lot about in your questionnaire, you talk about early extension, and you talk about maybe not hitting it quite as far. And the early extension is sort of minor in the sense that there's a lot of great players that have early extension. What I'm going to focus on as it relates to early extension with you is how you go from this bent leg position. So if we look at your trail leg, you can see how it's bent at this position as you start early transition. And what's going to happen is it's going to start to straighten dramatically. So you can see how we've lost the flex in that knee. And what that means is, to me, that's early extension, is when we go from this position, if you look at the top of your head, and we start moving up. When you start moving up, it's very difficult to rotate, and the arms are going to straighten dramatically. Okay, and then what you'll notice is at impact is because of that, you couldn't get anywhere near rotated enough where we would see like your left scapula and your left glute muscle. And that's an indicator of rotation. So if we compare you to a model, just to kind of understand this, I want you to take a look at Tommy Fleetwood. So if we look at Tommy, he's a great model for us because, he's only 5'9". He doesn't have a ton of muscle mass, so he's easy to relate to. And he does some things very, very good. So if we look at him at the top of his swing, watch how he goes from more of a straight leg position here. And you can see the flex in his ankles as he starts down. You're going to start to see him really bend that trail leg. So you can see the bend has increased significantly. And when you do that, you're putting pressure into the ground, and that's going to give us the opposite effect of standing up and throwing the right arm. So if we use pressure into the ground and do a little bit of a squatting action or feel, you can see how much more rotated he is. So he's got the left butt cheek. You can see the white belt, fully extended there, so we can see that pointing at the target, and the chest is fully rotated. So the other aspect of that is that his right arm is bent. Okay, so when you talk about biomechanics, in order to create rotation, we want to utilize the ground in order to create it. So when we look at your swing, you can see a significant difference. So now the important part is, well, how do we do this? Okay, so over our next couple of lessons, we're going to be really focusing on how to get our chest and our hips more open at impact. Okay, now we can go into the physical areas that are needed. So we talk about dorsiflexion a lot, which is the ability for your toes to go towards your ankles, or from this view, to increase flex in your lead leg. Okay, so I've got a couple drills for you I'm going to pull up, and we're going to get to work on this. Okay, so this one, Gene, is what we call the junior club drill. So what you can do is you can take a 7-iron and just choke down if you want to, and you'll see that I have a T in the ground right here, and now I'm hovering the club. And the reason why I'm hovering the club, this is why I call it a junior club drill, because we do it with junior clubs all the time, is if you notice, if I'm going to try and hit this golf ball, the only way I'm going to be able to hit it from the top of my backswing is going to be really flex my trail leg. So you're going to see that, and this is all exaggerated, of course. And now that I've flexed that trail leg, I'm putting pressure down into the ground, and now I'm going to facilitate chest rotation a lot easier, right? And so all I did is I really shortened the length of the club, and I hovered it, and I said, well, how am I going to get down to hit that tee out of the ground? Or, if you're doing this in your backyard, how would you hit that golf ball? Well, the only way you're going to do it from my setup position is you're going to have to increase the flex of the trail knee, and you're going to have to really rotate. And you can see how that gets the left scapula and also the left glute showing at impact. Now, just as a quick side note to this, I'm not thinking at all about my hips. All I'm trying to do is open up my chest, and I'm squatting low so that I can get to that T. Okay, so you'll see this again. So I'm hovering the club. You can see how straight my trail leg is. And now as I start down, I'm really having to increase the flex of that knee. And instead of soling it into the ground, I force myself to rotate, which allows me to contact the T. Okay, so this is going to be a great drill for you. Another drill that is going to really help you is what I call a right lateral bend throw. So what this looks like, and this is going to solve both the steeper shaft in transition, the early extension, all the things we're talking about. These are all the same things, just different ways to look at it. So if we do this drill, you're going to make a shoulder turn, and then you take your right arm, and you're going to just slide it down until you touch the back of your right leg. And what this does is it creates this bend, which is called right lateral bend. And now from here, I'm going to just bend my trail elbow like I'm in a sidearm throwing position. And from here, I'm going to keep that glued to my side, and I'm just going to throw. And notice how if I was throwing a ball, this would be really easy, right? So all I'm doing here is turning my chest, and I'm keeping this right arm right where it was. I'm not straightening it or anything like that. Okay, and that will create the right lateral bend, will help you with shallowing the shaft, and it will also help you with getting your chest to open up and rotate. And again, the only way you're going to do that is by utilizing the ground. So my prescription for you, Gene, would be to do these drills at home and then do them in isolation. So what does that mean? So I would do the junior club drill maybe 10 times with a tee in the ground and just practice hitting a tee out of the ground. So you're on a driving range, so you have those plastic tees, that stick in there. Just take a 7-iron, choke it all the way down towards the steel, and just hover it and go up to the top of your swing, stop, and then tell yourself, well, how would I get there? The only way you're going to get there is by squatting, and then in order to get to the ball, that right arm's going to be bent, you're going to be more rotated. Okay, and then so let's say I did 10 repetitions of those. Then maybe what I would do is I would practice this sidearm drill where I do a right lateral bend from the top of my swing, which looks just like this. So I turn my shoulders, I'm drawing down my knee, bending the elbow, and just leaving it right there and just rotating. Okay, so you can see how that's a good looking position right there. And then the last piece of this, and I tell all my players this, is that you have to have some sort of part of your practice that kind of shuts your brain off, and you do a practice swing to feel those elements that you worked on in your drills, and then you just hit a shot, and then afterwards you evaluate it. How did that feel compared to that practice swing, which was obviously a good swing? Okay. So work on that prescription, and then make sure and contact me and keep me updated. I want to let you know too, Gene, we've got some new stuff coming out for monthly programs. We're actually going to lower our fees, and we're going to talk a little bit about that with you. So hopefully you like our programs and you're on board, and looking forward to getting you some more results. Thanks, Gene.